reading realm. And I like to do the same thing now. I like to break it up, and I'll do so. The book really is there's a lot of material, and it starts really at the very elementary beginning, and goes all the way to pretty advanced syncopation work, and accent work, and all kinds of great material. So I like to touch the front of the book and talk to the primary students, and then I'd like to go back further into the book and take a look at some of the syncopation things that he wrote, using the same ideas that I introduce with the beginners. Okay, so and I use the whiteboard to draw some music first before we got into the book, and I'd like to do that again. But before we do that, I'll give you a little peek. This is the cover, and the second page, of course, looks like that. It has a forward. I won't read it. Oh, it's a pretty nice thing to read. I like to read the text material in these books to find out more about the authors. And then I went through that, and then the table of contents, and you can see here that it's quite deep. Starts out with lesson 1, playing quarter notes, quarter rests, and half rests. And then that's the left side. It goes through all of this lesson stuff in preparation for the right side, which is the syncopation. Page 33. Yeah, it's more than halfway through the book. We finally get to the title of the book. And that's really for the more advanced readers. Okay. And then it goes on from here to the actual first page. Okay. Which looks pretty simple, and I'm going to use this page to talk to the primary students. So if you're an advanced reader, you may not want to see this portion. However, I'm going to talk about time signatures and interpretation. This book, in particular, is very good for interpretive styles of music. So the pages can be done many ways, and you've seen, I'm sure, other teachers show you in videos and possibly in lessons, how versatile this book is. But I want to begin right at the beginning and just show you just how we start interpreting the music right at the very beginning, fundamentally, and then we can bring that concept into the syncopation side. But I want to present it in a very simple format. So I'm going to go to the whiteboard. I'm going to get rid of everything on the screen so we get black. You'll still be able to hear me. Okay. And now I can bring the whiteboard up. And so you can see that there's the whiteboard. Okay? So I'm going to use this to talk about time signatures. So the basic time signature that we started with was and what we did last time was the 4/4. I'm doing very good today. And that meant 4 quarter notes. That's supposed to be filled in. Okay, these are all filled in notes. And it needs a stem to make it a quarter. Right? So that's what's written on the page. All right. And the top number says there's 4 counts. Okay, so there it is. So it's 4/4 is the signature, and it's designating 4 notes, and the 4 means it's 4 quarter notes. So we're counting them 1, 2, 3, 4. There's your 4 notes. So that's what the notes look like, and that's what they counted like 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And now I'm going to bring up the book, and we're going to read this. Book. Here we go. All right. That's fairly easy. And this was the lesson the last time. I'm just reviewing basically as a starting point. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Second line. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so the bottom line doesn't change, right? And that's really the bass drum. That's on underlying pulse in 4/4, the bass drum. So we'll make that the metronome. And what was that tempo I was doing? Anybody want to guess? 108. Oh my God. Close enough. All right? And so that's it. 4/4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we read the page. Enough of that. So the next thing I want to talk about is what happens if we do this? If we go 2/2. Right? And now we only have 2 notes. And they're half notes. And there's only 2 of them, so the count is only 1, 2. So how's that going to work? All right. Well, then 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So the bars are going by twice as fast now. And a half note is now the count. 1 and 2 is a half note. So the quarter notes are not the count anymore. They're in between the counts. Well, in between the counts gets ands. So the quarter notes now look like 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. Even though I might be playing 4 on the bass drum. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 2 and 2 and 2 and. Right? But I don't want to do that because it doesn't feel. It feels very rushed like that. I want to feel the time signatures. So I want to play my bass drum with the metronome. One, two, 1, 2, 1 and 2 and 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 1 and 1 and 2 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 and. Okay, I'm not reading the bass drum part. I'm attaching my foot to the metronome so that I feel the pulse in 2 beats to the bar. The pulse is a half note. And now the quarter notes are ands. 1, 2, 3, 4. This would be in 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 1. That would be in 2/2, a double time. So the count is really attached to the time signature, not to the notation itself. Right? The quarter note could be a 1, it could be an and. It could also be something else. What happens if we try this one? What happens if we do this time signature? And these are all the same, same value. And mathematically, these are all the same value. So they really all sound the same. What's different about them is the way we're subdividing the values and counting them. And it changes the way things feel. So the feel is just, so the feel can change with the same music, depending on how we subdivide the time signature, or we continue to subdivide below the time signature. Subdividing above the time signature would bring us over the bar line. So what's this? That one note per bar and one count. One, 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 one. So if the whole note is now the count, then the half note becomes the in-between the count, which is the and then the quarter note becomes the in-between, which is the is and the us. So now we're looking at one yana, one yana, one yana, one yana, one yana, one yana, one yana. One yana, one yana, 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 yana. In 1. I didn't change the metronome. All I did was change how we're conceptualizing, and the C is common time. The most common interpretation of C is 4/4. The common really just means whole bar, whole time, whole. Harmonic. And C could be expressed mathematically in several ways. And I'm not even getting into the subdivisionals yet. I'm basing the subdivisionals that we presented in the counting base is still based on the primary pulse. But we could subdivide further down, not based on the primary pulse. Well, we can't do it in 1/1 because every subdivision is based in the primary pulse. That is the primary pulse. Period. 1/1 is the primary pulse. 2/2 is the first harmonic. And I don't want to talk about the second harmonic, which is 3/3. Then we get into harmonic notation and we're in a different world. So what we do in the Western world is we just put brackets around the 3s and force them on top of the 2s. We don't really deal with the 3/3 in the Western world. Okay, so that's the concept. I'll play it for you. I'm gonna. Let's see if I can do this. The first line will be 4/4. The second line will be 2/2. The third line will be 1/1. It's all how I interpret what I'm looking at. That's what this book is about. And this is the beginning of the interpretation process. Just interpreting the feels. And now, then we can jump down into the subdivisions, eighth notes and triplets, and all that stuff, which even further defines the feel. This is a very fundamental setup of what the feel of the pulse. But within the pulse, we could subdivide a lot of different ways underneath the pulse and make the pulse feel differently as well. Alright? So that's the primary lesson. That's a lot. That's a lot to deal with, right? Let me stop this. Jeez. That's the primary lesson. So let's go. Let's get rid of the whiteboard and bring me back. So I've made my statement with the whiteboard. Hello. Hi. Good morning. Actually, it's afternoon here. It's afternoon. All right, I'm back. And we can even bring back the little mini syncopation book. So remind everybody what we're doing here. All right, so let's go to 33 now. Now, the book. This is only the beginning. I mean, the quarter. We can add eighth notes to this, and then read eighth notes in these three ways, and then we can do it with sixteenths. Maybe we can do it with the triplet, because that's what he does until he gets to. What did I say it was? 33. That's it. Well, I guess yeah. Yeah, this is where he starts addressing the syncopation. And if you remember what I did last time, I addressed the difference between a slurred note and a not slurred note. Not a roll, and not a re-attack on the end of at the end of the sustain, but just the sustain itself, as if it was a wind player or a string player. How they would approach it. And that's the concept he's presented here. So they all, basically under pad, they all sound the same, but on the drum set you can use long and short tones. We're not talking about rolls now. You can use rolls too, but that's just another choice of, sound for the long tone. You can hit a cymbal and do the same thing, or hit an open drum that has no muffling will also give you some sustain. So we can do the same thing with this stuff. And I don't want to look at this page because it's confusing enough trying to do this stuff three different ways. And I have to try to figure out what the notation is telling us as well. So let's get more familiar material up. Let's go. That's what the next page looks like. All right, that's more reasonable. Okay, now we're into a pattern, repetitive pattern format for muscle memory encoding. We'll call it. I've been in corporate America too long. So I can play this three ways now, right? I can play it as written. Let's play it as written. Oh, then see, she snuck that slur in on you there to see if you were watching and if you understood what happened on the previous page. Okay, so that's in 4/4. And you wrote this in 4/4, but I'm gonna say, okay, let's do 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, ready, but feel very different. Oh, in 1, this gets ridiculous. So what I would do is bring down the metronome. If I wanted to practice in 1, I did it with 1 metronome just to really show you what the relationship is. But you can change the metronome as long as you're conceptualizing in the same pulse. So if I'm at 108, for instance, I can go to 54. And now in 1, this becomes it's in 1. So in 2 it becomes that was line 3. Here's time. Here's line 2. And in 4, 1 and 2 E and 3, 4 Second line. Wow, nice feel. So obviously you see what happens when I bring the metronome down in half. What sounded like the 16th note, what sounded like the 8th notes become the 16th notes down here. What sounded like the quarter notes become the 8th notes, and what sounded like the 8th notes become the quarter notes. Well, the relationship in the math changes because I changed the interpretation of the metronome to half. I mean, I brought it down to half the speed that it was. But really, this tempo was really the same, except the 1 tempo became the 2/2, and the 2 tempo became the 4/4. Pretty interesting stuff. And then, I mean, we could go on. 34. When does he get to this? Until ultimately he gets to song, the improv form of playing for the phrase form, you know. Well, you can see what this does for your time. I'm doing this in one to the bar, one pulse. So the less pulse you have going on in your interpretation, your internal interpretation, I can play this in one. Great for your ability to feel and to keep time. The less I get from the metronome, the more I have to do, the more space I have to be responsible for. If I do this, do the opposite, I'm not responsible for anything. You know what I mean? Or even worse. But if I bring it down here, that's the bottom. Okay. Now I'm doing it. This is just a guide. I make the time. I'm creating the time. This is just a guide. You give me the pulse, and I fill in. And if you use a very quick pulse, it's not a very deep practice. Especially if you use a multi-divisional pulse with a pulse with a subdivision going on top of the pulse. Why don't you just program the exercise for the metronome and let the metronome do the whole thing? Okay, so now that was pulse-wise. That was interpretive pulses. Okay. I could also do interpretive notational subdivisions underlying this. I could go deeper into the subdivisional realm. What do I mean by that? Well, it's written in eighths. Right? So the the fundamental pulse is quarter, the way it's written, and the subdivisional pulse is eighths. 1 and 2 and 3. So everything is going to fall in pattern harmonically to the eighth note. Now, what if we could take it to the 16th note? Another feel. And then we can get into the threes. They don't do it metrically. It's a harmonic concept. The relationship between 3 and 2. So it doesn't fit nicely. It takes a little more interpretation on our part. Because now we're talking about, right? Before it was this in ones, and then we add the 2 subdivision, then we add the 3 subdivision. Same pulse. But I'm hearing this underneath it. So when I'm playing it, I'm feeling it differently from. I'm going to play my fills completely different if I do that, or if the pulse is the same. The basic pulse is the same. Well, so what happens here? What are we going to do now? So we got to fit them all in, but we got too many notes now in the subdivision. So the way to even it out is to take out the middle partial of each triplet. And we wind up with 8 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So now that we have 8 notes, we can line up the eighths. We have downs, and every subdivision has a down and an up. And if we make that the down of the next subdivision, it doubles it, and it's an octave above harmonically, and it doubles the time. Okay? And so on the all the downs will be on a triplet, and the upbeat's going to be on the third of the triplet, the third partial of the triplet. Another feel. Now we could. That's sort of like an independence exercise. That's a good place to start. Then you can do it. You can do it the other way. Whoa. All right. There's 3 subdivisional fields underneath the pulse. And I'm talking about whether it's a 4 to the bar pulse, or a 2 to the bar pulse, or a 1 to the bar pulse. And you can, instead of doing that independently, you could do it separated, and it really gives you, it'll give you an idea. Pretty useful stuff. And then, you know, accents. Using parallel 30-second note subdivision. So, and then now you can go back to all those other approaches of replacement on the drum set that everybody has documented, and now alternate your pulses and alternate your subdivisional notational factors underneath, so that you feel your basic pulse in ones and twos and fours, and you can feel your subdivisional feels within those pulses between eighth notes. Quarter notes is easy. Usually that's the bass pulse. Eighth notes and triplets, and then sixteens. And then you can apply those subdivisional feels and pulses against various independent and accentuation exercises. So that's where. I'm getting email. Sorry. So that's where this interpretation that we started with on page 1 will be read it as is, and then I have the student read it in 2, and if they succeed in 2, then I challenge them to do it in 1. And if they can't do it, I ask them to take it home and bring it back and show it to me. And that's the beginning of reading interpretation. And we wind up back here using that kind of an approach to really apply basic textual information in a very musical way. And we can play the same music many different ways, depending on how we choose or what is asked of us, or what the conditions of the situation are that we're playing within, so we can interpret the needs of, of the music. So we can serve the music and serve the intent of the composer, or serve the intent of the guy that hired you, or the guy who hired him, or whatever it is, There's more than one way to play everything. So anyway, that's about. I mean, we can go on. I could show you this in various sections of the book, and we could sit down on a drum set and we can show it to you on a drum set. But I don't think I need to do that. I think my job is conceptually open your mind up and show you what can be done, and how you can look at things, and how you can explore for yourself. And if you want help, and I suggest you get help, then seek it out. Get a local expert who knows how to read and knows how to play well and interpret it for you, and guide you, because you'll get your progress will be a lot quicker that way, and you'll also cover a lot of ground that you may not get to touch on your own, ever. So it'll be a much more effective and efficient way of learning how to read, if that's what your goal is. Anyway, this is just the beginning. This is just a thought, and I hope it provokes thought for you, and I hope you, if you want to learn to read, that you seek out a teacher, and you do that, and you pursue your goals and your passion. And in the process of that, you have to keep practicing. Okay, don't stop. Keep practicing.